On 9th August 2022, Kenyans head to the polls. The politicians are out campaigning and the voters seem ready to vote in the leaders of their choice. The right to vote in any democracy is crucial. Voting should be made easy and accessible to all voters, and it is, at least in most cases. But then, there are times it's not.
Many youths wamefungiwa nje, hawajavote. Youths from 2018 to 2022, we are very many.
But how did we go from this?
And if you don't take this opportunity to register before 6th of February, you'll be left out.
To this.
Naofia pia ikifika hiyo wakati ya general election, waseme pia tuyuko kwa register. Yet tumechukua makura zetu. What's the purpose of that voter's ID card?
There are over 22 million registered voters in Kenya. There are those that will vote in the coming election and those who will not vote willingly. But then there are voters who will be willing to vote, but that right will be taken away from them, usually over different reasons. So, what are they and how does it happen? The maturity of a country's democratic process lies in its ability and that of its people to hold a free, fair, and credible election. But then in Kenya, is it ever free, fair, or credible?
That the presidential election held on 8th August 2017 was not conducted in accordance with the Constitution and the applicable law, rendering the declared results invalid, null, and void.
You realize that most elections in Kenya, it is not about voting. Where the problem comes in is counting and reporting.
You could hear the former chairman of the Electoral Commission, Mr. Kiwitu, also complaining about the way the results were coming, and he said they must be cooking the results somewhere.
Many voters still don't know why actually that process should be peaceful. Also, they don't understand what goes about all this process.
Election fraud is the illegal interference with the process of an election. Over the years, Kenya's elections have been marred by widespread electoral malpractices. Violence, voter bribery, ballot stuffing, multiple voting, corruption, and the list goes on and on. While there are many ways to interfere with an election, one of the ways used to manipulate the results before any voting is even done is to interfere or manipulate the voters' register.
We are alive to the fact that those breaches are happening right now. But as a commission, we have invested in security, especially for our systems. We have secured our system in what we call an end-to-end security solution.
Sensitive an issue this is that people have been killed over it.
Dozens of questions remain unanswered following the discovery of the body of IEBC ICT manager Chris Musando, who had been missing since Friday.
Just days before the August 8, 2017 elections, Christopher Musando, the then ICT manager at the IEBC, was found brutally murdered.
His body was positively identified by his family.
Years later, those who abducted, tortured and killed him are yet to face justice. Back to the voters' register.
If you just hang around and don't register, you are useless. No, true. You can't be useful. You can't be any use because you are not participating in the development of Kenya.
When it comes to political rights in Kenya, the Constitution dictates that every citizen is free to make political choices and every adult citizen has the right to be registered as a voter and vote by secret ballot in any election or referendum. On paper, this sounds good. The reality is kind of complicated. I'm a registered voter in Kenya and actually I just got to verify my voter registration details on the IEBC verification portal. The process is pretty simple. All you need is your ID or passport number as well as your year of birth, and once you key in those details, you can confirm and verify your voter details. Mine are okay. But here's the thing, you might be a registered voter and meet all the necessary requirements for you to exercise your constitutional right to vote, but eventually end up not voting and doing so unwillingly. What do I mean? Let me explain. Washira Maina, a constitutional lawyer, once said this: the right to vote has 3 elements. The right to make a choice from among candidates on the ballot, the right to refuse to participate in the election by abstaining, and the right to cast a protest vote by rejecting all the candidates on the ballot. In all 3, the decision ultimately falls on the voter, but sometimes, like they say, things on the ground can be quite different.
Democratic Alliance UDA has today unveiled a National Elections Board to oversee its nominations ahead of the forthcoming general election.
The Elections Act provides that a political party shall nominate its candidates for an election at least 90 days before a general election. On 14th April 2022, the United Democratic Alliance, UDA, one of Kenya's popular political parties under the Kenya Kwanza coalition, held their primaries in 36 out of the 47 counties. In some polling stations and regions, it was all systems go.
It was a success. For me, it was a success. We need to have a very transparent election, very transparent nomination process.
In others, not quite. We covered the nomination exercise in Uasin Gishu County, one of the party's strongholds and the home county of Kenya's presidential candidate William Ruto, who is also the UDA party leader. Our day starts at the Border Farm Primary School polling station in Anaibkoi constituency. We meet Kibet, the presiding officer, preparing to kick off the exercise.
For the presiding officer, his role is to just supervise and oversee that everything is going according to what was planned. Presiding officer, if he makes a mistake, then that election, then it's I might say it's a null and void.
It may be his first time overseeing an election, but he knows all too well how wrong things can go.
I really needed to have my game. I knew anything is possible. You come here prepared for anything. The worst case scenario, the best case scenario, yeah, you're prepared for anything. This nomination process are given to clerks. One of them is to check the register, to look for the person who is coming to vote. You look at the voter. It checks him in the register. If he's there, he continues. Second clerk on the second desk is given the nomination papers, the ballot papers. Then after that, he moves from the second clerk and goes to the ballot booth. There is where he makes his choices, of which it's his or her democratic right.
When voting is done, follows counting of the votes and then the announcement of the results. Ideally, this is how the voting process should work. Does it always work like this though? Not entirely.
Sijavote. Sikuvote 2017. Nilipata ID 2017 December na sikukuwa kwa register ya IBC.
Franslin Jelagat is a registered voter from Maili Nne in Taribo constituency, Uasin Gishu County. She is one of the over 6 million UDA registered members. The primaries would have been her first time to vote, but that experience was nothing short of disappointing.
Tumefika hapa asubuhi around 6. We were expecting to vote, but kulikuwa na delays. Ballots zilifika hapa around 9:30. Voting ikaanza around 10. And it's so unfortunate that youths cannot vote. They are using the IBC register ya 2017.
In any electoral process, the voters' register is a very crucial factor, but it has been a point of contention in most, if not all, Kenyan elections.
It is not clear to us, certainly to me, why you have terminated the process of acquiring the BVR.
The IBC has not addressed the issue of the register as expected, despite the audit firm KPMG raising pertinent issues surrounding the validity of some voters in the register.
During the 2022 primaries, the story was not different.
The IBC did not update their 2017 register. For the IBC, prior to the nomination period, they shall update the register, and I want to recommend that even after updating the register, like the normal way they usually do during the general election, the register should be available even 14 days to those polling stations, so that whenever I'm walking to that polling station, I know actually that register is updated and my name is there, so that I don't waste time going there to be disappointed to be told that I'm not going to vote because my name is not there.
Yani, we can't choose our leader as youths. Why? Yet we have our national ID card and our voters. They were convincing us back earlier that tuchukue tukate kura. Mbona sahi tusitumie hiyo kura? Tusitumie hiyo kura kuchagua kiongozi mwenye tunamtaka.
For any voter, this can be a nightmare. But what is even more strange is the fact that while Francelyn and her peers could not vote at their polling station because they were not on the 2017 register, in other stations where the same problem had been reported, voters in the same predicament were allowed to vote.
Those people who were missing, they went ahead to get the returning officer, to get the county returning officer, of which they came back with a report that those who are missing, they should not be cancelled out. Once you get a voter's card, there is that acknowledgement slip. You come with that acknowledgement slip, supported by your identification card original. Then we allow you in.
How will it be fair while others didn't vote? Yeah. For example, my polling station, walikuwa expect watu more than 5,000 were vote. But when the results came out, only less than 1,000 people voted.
What Francelyn experienced is what is called voter disenfranchisement, which is basically an act of depriving a minority group or individuals of certain privileges the right to vote. An unupdated register in an election is just one way to do it. The others?
The voters need more sensitization of that civic education of how to vote, because not all of them are conversant with the electoral process, so it becomes a challenge.
There was a delay in opening the polling stations. Like there's this MV Patel Hall, which actually it was open at 2 p.m. The turnout was very poor because the voters actually waited for a long time until they just left. The factor which contributed a lot of this mess actually is inadequate polling staff. You realize all these stations which are actually populated, especially the turbo polling stations, that is Kapsaos Ward and Oruma Ward, you will find that they had only each ward, each polling station had only 2 staff, which was under-equipped.
Normally people go to vote, they know that this is just, it's just to officiate, but there are some people who have been already appointed.
In 2008, the Independent Review Commission, IREC, also known as the Kriegler Commission, was tasked by the Kenyan government to investigate the conduct of the 2007 elections and recommend electoral reforms.
The integrity of the electoral process, we have found, is subject to serious criticism.
Some of the recommendations from IREC that have since been implemented include granting polling agents access to polling stations, ballots being handed over to the voters at the same time, polling stations being made accessible to all voters, among others. But over a decade later, it's evident that we still have some work to do as far as streamlining the electoral process is concerned. Take, for instance, the voters' register.
Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission is hardly meeting targets or timelines, and as far as the voter register goes.
Section 8A of the Elections Act 2011 requires the Electoral Commission to engage a professional reputable firm to conduct an audit of the register of voters. This should happen at least 6 months before the date of a general election. But as of February 2022, the IBC had not settled on any audit firm.
The advert was done and I understand from the Procurement Directorate that there were no responsive bidders as of the time the process was, evaluations were done. The Commission has to find other ways of engaging an auditor, and we leave this to the Directorate to guide the Commission.
The IEBC would later settle on the same audit firm that audited the 2017 register to clean the 2022 voters register.
PMG has succeeded among the 4 firms which bid, and they are the ones who will be undertaking the exercise of the audit.
The final register would then be scheduled for publishing on 9th June 2022, but that too did not happen on time. The reasons?
However, due to the implementation of these preliminary audit findings on the register, the Commission has decided to address the findings prior to certifying the register for publication on or before the 20th of June this year.
Every election year, the Electoral Commission faces an array of challenges such as technological issues, insufficient funds, distrust from Kenyans, among others. So, is the Commission ready for the 2022 elections?
So in terms of preparation for the 9th of August, the team has actually done what it ought to do, and the Commission is ready to deliver to Kenyans free, fair and credible election.
The assurances aside, these kind of setbacks have a direct impact on the election timeline, which eventually influences the effectiveness of the electoral process in one way or another. But this also further affects the voter in more ways than one.
Naofia pia ikifika hiyo wakati ya general election waseme pia tuyuko kwa register. Yet tumechukua makura zetu.
A day after the primaries, we visit Francelyn at home. We want to find out if any of the aspirants she had hoped to vote for won, and if they didn't, how would that affect her?
From governor, bet yangu tu ilikuwa sure, but to MCA, it failed me. During all those time, hakuwahi shughulika na issue na maji. My mom, tuko na tank 2, ya underground na yenye iko juu. So, anabaingi maji na tractor, which it is around 2500 per tractor. Hiyo tractor moja inajaza ya chini peke yake. Ya juu ni tractor ya pili, which it is around 5000. Na pia tuko na maji ya Eldowas. It is being limited. Kana kuja kadogo inapotea. Kunini maji ya Eldowas, it's around 10,000. Ndo maji ingie kwako, it's around 10,000. Na kila mtu si ati ana ako what do I say? Anaweza afford. Yeah, si kila mtu anaweza afford aeke hiyo maji.
Hers is an example of how delays, intentionally done or otherwise, in any step of the electoral process can lead to voter dissatisfaction.
I'm praying that mwenye amechukua sai atatusaidia. That has been our cry since then. Ni maji tu.
And though the law dictates that no eligible citizen should be denied the right to vote, Francelyn is neither the first and probably will not be the last to experience this over and over again. The question is, will we get to a point where Kenya's elections will truly reflect the will of the people?